Okay, good morning, and welcome to What's New in Exchange Online. As you may have guessed, this session is going to be delivered in English, not Croatian, so I'll try to speak slowly, but we do have 45 minutes only and a lot of stuff to cover, including slides and demos. So even though the title is What's New in Exchange Online, I'm also going to talk a little bit about what's coming in the next version of Exchange Server on premises as well, or what we're calling Exchange Server 2016. So you will get a little bit of glimpse into what's coming in the future as well. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Schnoll. I'm a Senior Program Manager on the Office 365 Customer Experience team. It's a relatively new role for me. For the first 10 years of my career at Microsoft, I was on the Exchange Engineering team, so I helped build several versions of Exchange, including the one that's coming later this year. So we're going to talk about why my clicker is dead. We're going to talk about several things. We'll talk about how we are delivering innovation, how we're servicing Exchange, how we build new features, and so forth. Then we'll talk about some of the challenges that our customers have told us with respect to email and Exchange. And then we'll talk about the features that we have both in Exchange Online and some of which will be in the next version of Exchange that address those challenges as well. So one thing I want to point out, wow, totally dead, is because we will be talking about some things that have not yet been released, I have to give you some disclaimers and let you know that some things are subject to change. I don't expect anything today that I'm going to talk about to change, but there are some things that are to be determined that we just haven't figured out yet. So it could go either way, hence the disclaimer. Oh, that's okay. Okay, so let's talk about how we deliver innovation. Actually, this will work. So hopefully by now you've heard that we're using what we call a cloud-first delivery model. Basically what that means is that we develop for the cloud first, in this case Exchange Online, and then those features that are appropriate for on-premises deployments, they will make their way into the Exchange Server product. A cloud-first delivery is one that involves what we call continuous innovation and rapid feedback. The continuous innovation is pretty simple. We are continuously adding new features, new functionality, new controls, new UI, new everything to not just Exchange Online, but all the other services and workloads in Office 365 as well. But the rapid feedback is new and different for us, and this is in fact the reason that we chose a cloud-first delivery. So if you think about the way that we've developed and shipped Exchange Server in the past, it's typically a 3-year development cycle where a PM will come up with a feature idea, they'll push that idea through into the code. That might take a year. Then we'll ship the product. And it could be maybe 2 years, 3 years later that some customers actually adopt it. And by that time, that's when we're getting the feedback. So between the time that the PM starts the process and the time they start getting feedback, you could be talking 3, 4 years or more. That's not very fast feedback. But with Office 365 and Exchange Online, we deploy features all the time. Almost on a weekly basis, typically a monthly basis, but in some cases on a weekly basis. And what that means is that from planning to actually shipping that feature, it's a very small time window, and users get it right away. There's nothing for them to deploy, it just automatically shows up in their tenant. And they get to use it right away, tell us if it meets their needs, and so forth. All of the, wow, this one doesn't want to work either. All of the feedback, all of the features that we end up with for Exchange Online, many of them end up in what we call cumulative updates. So we've abandoned these roll-up updates, and now we just ship cumulative updates and service packs for Exchange 2013. There's really no difference between a cumulative update and a service pack. They're exactly the same thing except for the name. The only reason we choose a cumulative update to be called a service pack is for the product lifecycle. So those of you who are tracking EA agreements or product lifecycle, we have service packs still, but it's really just another name for a cumulative update. So the next version of Exchange, which again will have some of these features in them, we've already said is going to be Exchange Server 2016, and it will ship by the end of this year. So sometime in this calendar year, the next major release of Exchange Server on premises will be available to you. Now, we do the same thing on the Outlook side. The innovations that we put into Outlook web app, many of them will ultimately accrue to the next version of Office and the next version of Outlook, also named 2016 as well. So let's talk about the challenges, because as we are building features and indeed building the next version of products, we look at all of the pain points that our customers and partners have so that we can try and do things to address them. Now, a lot of these pain points are the same ones that we've heard for years. You know, users saying that their mailbox is full and it's too hard to triage email because important messages are mixed in with not so important messages. And documents are sent as attachments, which can cause all sorts of versioning problems, tracking problems, and all sorts of things. In fact, it might surprise you to learn that email itself was never designed to send attachments. It wasn't meant for that kind of collaboration. Yet everybody does it every single day, even within Microsoft. But when you do that within email, you break the collaboration experience because you've got multiple versions of the same document in different people's mailboxes, and it's hard to keep track of which one's the most current and where everybody is in the review and publication lifecycle. On the organizational side, again, a lot of organizations are concerned that overwhelming majority of their corporate knowledge is tied up in people's mailboxes and not directly accessible by their personnel at large. And also, it makes it difficult for new people coming in to get up to speed when information is located in people's mailboxes. And then there's the compliance side as well. There's a lot of work that we're doing continuously to meet both international and local regulations, to meet business compliance requirements, and so forth. And we're going to talk about those as well. So we typically, when we're building a product like Exchange, it's so large and there's so much going on that we like to take the features and put them into groups so that we can align them together and explain them to folks like you. So the groups, or what we sometimes call themes for Exchange, and again, the same themes apply to both Exchange Online and on-premises. The themes would be things like working smarter, security and compliance, and social email. So let's dig into those. So working smarter is really about making the information worker more productive. It's about features like Clutter that help reduce the amount of unwanted email in their inbox, or features like the rich content and the app enhancements that we've put into Office and Outlook web app, or the search enhancements that we've also added into Outlook web app, and there are more coming as well, and we'll talk about both of those. And then Outlook Everywhere, of course, which is our end goal, to get Outlook on every device and every tablet, every laptop, every desktop, every form factor that you can imagine. So let's talk a little bit about Clutter first. So when we talk about people that use email, we typically group them into one of two categories. There's either filers. So I myself, I'm a filer. What that means is, as all my mail comes in, I use inbox rules to handle the automatically. So I file as it comes in. And then I just use the search folders view within Outlook or Outlook web app to triage my unread messages. Now, there's other folks who do the opposite of that. They let it, and that's Clutter designed for them. Clutter won't do me any good because I already have the inbox rules that help filter my email and put it where I want. But for those of you who are piloting all of your mail, this is what reduce the. When we talk unwanted mail, we're not talking about junk mail. That's a completely different feature. The junk mail feature still operates just in the same way. But this falls in this email, maybe gray email, maybe a newsletter subscription that you subscribe to, but you really don't read that frequently. Or maybe it's internal corporate communication. Great for you to read your current designed to do. Clutter's designed to take those messages and move them to what we call the Clutter folder. Okay? Is not a view. It's a separate folder. And so into Clutter, which they live. Also a learning instrument. When you're using online, and in fact, when you're using almost every service in Office 365, you are sending signals to the system. What email convert those called tree is used by Clutter and other features to learn behaviors, learn your behavior specifically, and personalize the experience towards you. So another newsletter, it Clutter folder because you really read it very often, but for other people it might stay in your inbox because they always read it. One way. There's other ways that Clutter can learn too. If you haven't met, you would have Clutter folders as messages like that come in. You simply drag that from your and Clutter that message should be treated like Clutter. Or you can take a message out of Clutter and drag it into your inbox, and that will teach Clutter that messages to rule. Just drag using your to read and triage email. So let me switch over to demo and show Clutter. Okay, so if you haven't seen this yet, this is what web app Office 365. I can zoom it in so you see a little bit more. And over the hand side, you can see that folder with a star Clutter. That is the Clutter folder. It has been rolled out worldwide unless you decide to turn it off. That's something we may reconsider. We might actually remove simply because we know administrators want users, and it may not be something that the end user really cares to. And open up the folder here. You can see there's them could be from inside organization, some could be from external. Legitimate. It's not spam, it's not malware to me. So it goes into my Clutter box. Again, as I wanted to 2015, that's an important event. All I really need to do is just drag this into my, and literally are about Tech Expo should not go into Clutter. I'm in the inbox. Really, any one of these messages I could take, drag, should not go into my inbox if it shows up again. Type of feature there. We're giving you the ability to control aspects of behavior, a global switch to turn it off for all of your users. All right, let's talk a little about rich. So one is a URL is called the line player. So let's talk about the first one, about the URL preview. This feature is particularly handy when you're sending around those short URLs, or really any URL that you can't really tell where it's going by the name. If you just have a cryptic set of characters, that URL could take you anywhere. So what URL preview does is when you're sending or receiving messages that have URLs in them, it will go out to that URL, get some metadata, like the title of the page, as you can see up here, maybe an abstract if one is available, or the first couple lines of the page, maybe a preview of any inline images or the first inline image that might be there. So that way when this URL is in the mail message, you have a pretty good idea as to where it's going to go when you click on it. It's not just a mystery because it's got some cryptic URL in there. Same thing with the video. If your URL happens to point to a video, say a YouTube video, for example, or something on Office 365 videos, we'll not only give you a preview of that video, but we'll include an inline player for you to just play that video in place as well. Again, let me show you those two things. So I can just create any new mail message, and I can just say, check out, whoops, thank you. You're probably going to be telling me that several times during this. So, okay, so I'll start from scratch here. So I'm creating a new mail message over here. And I'm going to write, check out this URL. And I'm just going to use a short URL. Okay, so you saw just a couple moments after typing in the URL and hitting enter so it would make it into a hyperlink, it went out and automatically fetched that page or the first part of that page. In this case, that's the short URL for the Exchange Team blog, so that's why it pulled up the Exchange Team blog site. And then, of course, you have this link here for read more and the option to remove the preview if you don't want the preview in there. Okay. I know there's a YouTube video in here. Let's use the search feature. Oh, okay, maybe there's not one. Okay, we're going to go to YouTube and we're going to grab a random video. We'll just take the first one that's on top. Okay, so I'll make a new message, paste in that URL, and you can see again, once again, it went out and got me the URL preview, but it did more than that. You can see the little play icon on top of the video here that allows me to click that and then start playing this video right inside of Outlook Web App. I don't have to leave and go to another browser window. I can just look at this right within the inline player here. Okay. All right, sorry. I know that was interesting, but you saw where it was on YouTube. You can go see it after the presentation. Now, one of the reasons we can do both of these things is because, as we've done with the last several versions of Exchange and Exchange Online, we have completely, once again, rewritten the Outlook Web App application to do these. And in this case, the particular change that we made was we got rid of the rich text editor that we were using, which was a little outdated to begin with, and we completely replaced it with the modern rich text editor that we had already implemented within SharePoint Online. So by creating or by taking that rich text editor from SharePoint into Exchange, now we can do all these wonderful things with the previews and the videos. Some other things that we can do are app enhancements. Now, apps within Outlook Web App and Office are not new. We've been doing that for a couple years now. But what's new here is that we now have apps available when you're composing email. Used to be just when you're receiving email. Now when you're actually authoring the email itself. This opens up all new possibilities. So for the information worker, as they're composing an email, they can now choose an app from the App Store and integrate additional content or additional features right into that mail message. For ISVs and developers, this is now another avenue for their application to get in front of the end users. A common example that we typically use is a product called DocuSign, which is an electronic document signature software. DocuSign integration now works in the compose phase. So if you have an electronic document that you need digitally signed by someone, you can integrate the DocuSign app within the compose experience and send them a document that's ready to be electronically signed, simply because it's within the compose experience. Now, DocuSign is just one example. There's many other examples of applications that can benefit end users when they're authoring the email. The point is that developers now have full access to the entire email experience, from composing to sending to receiving to triage and so forth. We've also made some search enhancements in Outlook Web App. The biggest enhancement we made are what we call search refiners. So you do your initial search. So instead of having to just research through everything again, we allow you to refine your search, add additional keywords, or add other whittle that not only applies to your contacts and your directory, but it also applies to your calendar. We have add you're searching for. So for instance, if you start typing VI, we might and say, are you for something? And then you can just to type. See an example of this. So we type VID and vid or video. There will be not all, we can, but not soon. So this is actually a mock-up here. I want to point out, I should have mentioned this. Let me back corner the server. The cloud icon and the data is when it was shipped to Exchange Online. That will so Clutter is something that you can see is online. It's not applicable for it uses among all the APIs available on the cloud. Outlook Web App, that's online in the next major release of Exchange Server later this year. The app enhancements, that's actually shipped in Exchange Online and Exchange Server 2013 SP1. And the search enhancements, most of them have shipped in Exchange Online. I mentioned there's a few more coming. And then this is also expected to be in Exchange 2016 as well. And then Outlook Everywhere. What do we mean by supporting Internet Explorer, including offline access for some of those browsers. In the second half of this year, Outlook Desktop vNext is expected to ship. Should ship in tandem with Exchange later this year. And Outlook for iOS and Android launched in preview mode in January 2015. Yesterday or the day before, it came out of preview mode for Android, and so now that is a fully released product. So those of you who have Android devices, you can go to the store and download Outlook for Android, and it is the released version. And then the Mail and Calendar app inside Windows 10. Guess what that's called? Outlook. It's not going to be called the Windows Mail app anymore. That's also going to be Outlook. So when we say Outlook Everywhere, we really mean on every operating system and every device that you can imagine. All right, let's talk a little bit about social email. So social email is really about two primary things. One is groups, and the other is document collaboration. And again, this goes to the challenges that I spoke of at the beginning of the session where email isn't designed for document collaboration because of all the version issues I mentioned, and the corporate institutional knowledge is trapped in individual people's mailboxes and not accessible by everyone or even by new employees coming in. So let's talk about groups first. So groups, the group concept right now is only partially implemented in Exchange because entity managed in Azure Active Directory. Our goal is to take groups and extend them across. So online would also forth. Is kind of like a distribution list, except it contains much more because it's the group's own calendar, the group's own file repository, the group's own document. Groups live public or private. The default is public because the idea behind groups is to have information. A team make a private group as well. Public groups are just anybody in your organization can search for public groups. The idea is to foster group and make them private as well. Like to create a group late last year in Exchange Online, but yet know if they're going to make their way into the on-premises product, not only on Active Directory, but also the full group experience. I'll show you what creates in just a moment. One of the biggest improvements, again, a distribution list. Joins a distribution list, what do they get? They only get the messages that were sent after they joined. It's not the same with a group. When you join a group, you have the entire group's conversation history available to you. Okay? That's one major advantage. A second major advantage is around the calendars. If, say, for instance, your manager has scheduled a meeting with you and your team, and it's a recurring meeting that happens once a month, and your manager goes on vacation, they're the owner of that meeting. In a typical meeting request, you would have to have the manager cancel that meeting, or if they don't cancel it, everyone still has it on their calendars, and some people might mistakenly show up to a meeting that's not going to happen. In the group experience, the calendar, even though one person in the group may have created the meeting request, everybody has ownership of that meeting request. So if the person who created it is out of the office, somebody else can go in and issue a cancellation and cancel the meeting, or change the meeting date, time, location, and other metrics. Again, a big difference over distribution lists or standard meeting requests. Okay, so let me show you groups. Okay, so I'm going to go to folders, and you can see groups here. One thing I want to point out is you see this star thing in the word new here. That's another thing that we're trying to do right inside of Outlook Web App. One of the challenges that you have when you deploy new features is their discoverability. How do users find them and use them? One of the ways we're trying to solve that is by lighting up the UI anytime we add something new or different, or even sometimes when we change something. Sometimes it might be a star and a new like that. Sometimes it might be a little bubble that appears that gives you information. But either way, when we make changes, in part because they're happening so fast, we want to let people know what those changes are. So right here on my tenant, it's telling me, hey, there's this new feature here. You might want to browse groups or create a group yourself. Again, if I'm browsing groups, I'm only browsing those groups that are made public. If I'm creating a group, as I mentioned, I have the option to create a group that's public or private. You can see under privacy, the default is public, but I can change that. I can choose a group name. We'll just call this WinDays 15. As I type in the name, the group will get its own unique ID, so we'll verify that that ID, that name is available, because that name will basically be the part of the email address for this group. And you can see here it says it's available, and I'll just write for WD15. And then for privacy, I can make it public. Anybody who can authenticate can get into that group and see everything in there. Or if I make it private, only those members that have been added by the group owner can see that content. So again, the default is public on purpose so that they're discoverable. And then there's this one option down here below that says subscribe new members. So as things happen in the group, messages are sent and received, meeting requests and so forth, in addition to going into the group folder, it will also go into this user's inbox. If you don't check this box, users have their own ability to subscribe to the group. So you might want to just let them figure that out on their own, or if you really want to enforce them getting messages in their inboxes, then you would check that box. So I'll go ahead and click Create, and now it's creating the group. One other thing I'll mention about the group names is administrators do have some control. You can create naming standards for your groups so that people just aren't creating groups of, whatever name, which could lead to problems, if you will. Okay, so now that I've got the group, now the next thing it wants me to do is add some members. So I'll add a couple folks. Okay. And you can see over on the left-hand side, even as I'm doing this, the group appeared. Okay, so now that I've created the group and I've added a member here, now it's gone ahead and put me into the group view so that I can see everything. And again, this is one of those examples here in the middle of one of those pop-up bubbles that will show up and give you the information that you're looking for. So, as an example, I'll just close this here. You can see some of the things that are available to the group. Conversations, again, would be the emails that are going back and forth among group members. The calendar for the group. You also have the ability to subscribe to a group calendar and have it overlaid on top of your own so you can see meetings with your own personal calendar. You can look at the group members. You can look at the group files, which would be stored in OneDrive. And you can also look at the notebook, which is a OneNote for the group as well. Adding to favorites adds it to your favorites in Outlook Web App. Subscribing is subscribing it. If I'm the owner, I can edit it or I can view the details. And if I want to, I can leave the group and completely depart it. All right, so that's groups. Here. And again, just to reiterate, groups right now are only within Exchange Online, but we do have plans to extend them to both SharePoint and Yammer once we get the underlying architecture all nailed down. All right, so the key with groups is that there's just a single identity for sharing. And as I mentioned, it's stored in Azure Active Directory, so it's a cloud-based identity that gets managed. Everything is federated between them, again, using the REST APIs that we communicate with. So as an example, the email messages that are sent for a group or the calendar for the group, those are stored in Exchange. The files for the group are stored in SharePoint or OneDrive for Business. And then there's also the notebook that you get with OneNote Online. We call this a loose coupling. In other words, all the workloads and services really need to understand is the group object and where the files and so forth live for that group. So there isn't anything special we had to do to the applications themselves in order to get them to understand and work with groups. And the way it works is if I go ahead and say I'm working in Outlook Web App, so I'm modifying the group through Exchange, any modifications I make when I add a member, remove a member, add files, remove files, et cetera, Exchange will notify SharePoint and notify Yammer of the other changes to it. And they'll go and pull those changes in and sync up very nicely. So any change that's made from any service aspect will automatically be shared by all of the services that are operating. All right. The last part of this section of the social email is the document collaboration or making attachments smarter. So again, it's all about collaborating in a smart way. If I email you a document, I've got one version of the document, and then you make changes, now you've got a second version of the document. Somebody else makes changes, they've got a third version, and so forth. So the idea around document collaboration is to not email the documents around, but rather have the documents stored in OneDrive and email links with the appropriate permissions. And that's something that happens automatically for you. So you can attach a file for OneDrive, and you'll notice the difference here. When you're looking at the icons for these files, you see just the regular Word and PowerPoint icon. But if you look at this one that's actually been attached, this has a little cloud next to it. So you can see the difference between this Word icon and that Word icon. This one indicates that this document is stored in the cloud, e.g. OneDrive. This indicates it's not. It's on a computer, or it's local, maybe on some USB stick, but it's not a cloud-based document. The idea here, when you're sending around cloud-based document, is now everyone is working from the same source. They're collaborating together in real time. You could have 2 people working on the same document at the same time, or you could have 10 people working on the same document at the same time. And they can all see each other's changes, they can get updates, they can collaborate both within Word and if they want to use Skype for Business to IM changes back and forth and so forth. It's all immersive. We do still give you the ability to send as an attachment, but what we hope is that most people will choose automatically upload this to OneDrive, assign the appropriate permissions based on who you're sending it to, and then create a link to that document for the recipients. So the recipients simply click a link, and they either open the document in the, say for instance, Word Online in the web app, or if they want the full fidelity, in Word itself on their desktop. But it's still a cloud-based document, and they're still collaborating in the same way that they would with everyone else. And this is something that has shipped in Exchange Online, and it is expected to be in Exchange 2016 as well. And most likely, this is going to be the default behavior, the uploading to OneDrive and assigning permissions and sending a link. Okay. The other bit of document collaboration is keeping you within the experience. And so what we mean by that is, this is Outlook web app, right? The mail message structure of it. When I click on this to edit it, instead of taking me to a separate browser window or opening up where I can hide, so if and then they get linked to the new updated version of the cloud document. It's all attachment. See, all I did was click on this attachment, and this works for an email and anything that is linked. So you can experience still an web app, but what this is basically in a second will or in here. And down, go away. Make a quick anything because this will automatically save my changes for me. And I'm back in here. And I did. If I want to go here again, this is new, so that link for that by default when I go to add a document, thing that adding a cloud attachment, I go to I can when I get the attachment, I'm going to upload that OneDrive. Okay, go ahead now. Sorry. All right. Okay, so the last is secure takes things like the auditing and logging and features and e-discovery features and all the other compliance-related features that are within Exchange and within SharePoint, and consolidates them into a single UI called the Office 365 Compliance Center. Right now, if you go into the Compliance Center, there's just a couple items that are there, but we will be expanding it to include more and more things soon. So this is actually a mock-up of what it looks like. I can show you what the real thing looks like here. So I'm going to go to the Admin Center. All right. So if I go down here under Admin, you can see not only is there Exchange, Link, SharePoint, etc. A couple things I'll mention. Link, obviously, is going to be renamed Skype for Business very soon. And you see that new one called Compliance. That is the new Compliance Center. And so when I go into the Compliance Center, and I still have the ability to go to the individual Exchange Admin Center and SharePoint Admin Center and do things separately there, but now we've got it in one place. And as I mentioned, there's just a couple things that are in here now, the archive mailboxes, e-discovery, retention or data governance as we call it, and then permissions and roles for your compliance individuals in your organization. Again, more and more things will show up here as we start moving them over into this. But this is the first iteration that we have. All right. Okay, data loss prevention we also have. A lot of this has already been released, but what's coming soon for the next version is the SharePoint and OneDrive search. So loss prevention, and we OneDrive it with Outlook app for devices or one of the later Outlook clients, mail within for sensitive content types like a credit card, passport, or things like that. I'll talk a little bit later on. Five and online, we've included what we call message encryption or OM. Feature the recipient did need to have a Microsoft account. Didn't need to be an Office 365 account, but they did need a Microsoft account. We changed that with the introduction of the one-time passcode. So they get a code, they put it in, and they can open up the encrypted information without that passcode. And now we are extending that to the iOS and Android apps. So I mentioned the Outlook for Android app that was just released. That now fully supports OME as well. Obviously, this is not applicable for the next version of Exchange because this is a cloud-only service. And then same with Exchange Online Protection. We've put in lots and lots of features with EOP, and there's even more coming, including message quarantine enhancements, support for domain keys as an authentication method for messages, and for both inbound and outbound DMARC as well. Okay, so those are the themes that we have. Those are the features that have already been shipped or that are coming very soon in either Exchange Online or the next version of Exchange Server on premises. So I'm not sure exactly what that says, but I'm assuming all of you do, so I'm just going to leave that there. And then also remind you that Microsoft Virtual Academy has a lot of great content for administration as well. So with that, we are out of time, but as I pack up and move out, I'm happy to take any questions that you guys have. I wish we had more than just 45 minutes to cover this stuff, but that's how they've done the sessions this year. If I don't get to your question today, you can just email me at any time, schnoll@microsoft.com. It's just my last name at microsoft.com. All right. Thank you very much.